All right, everyone, welcome to the second episode in this Redstone Basics video instructional series. Now, what I'm standing on right now is actually something that we covered in the previous episode. And if you haven't watched episode 1 already, I would highly suggest you guys do so because everything that we're covering in this series is going to be building off of the concepts that we go over in the previous episodes. So I suggest you guys watch these videos in order so things don't get too confusing. But for today, we are moving on from this thing right here, and we are focusing on redstone dust, which I have in my hand right now, and in my opinion is probably one of the most important components when making your own redstone contraptions. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So the purpose of redstone dust is pretty much to get power from point A and bring it over to point B, kind of like a wire in real life. And as you guys can see, we can pretty much put it in any direction that we want, including up blocks and down blocks. An important distinction, however, is that it needs to be up or down one at a time. So as you can see, if we try going up 2 blocks, you can see that this redstone piece and this one down here cannot be connected. Now, just like power sources such as levers and buttons, they need to be attached to a block in order for it to be placed down. So for example, if we were to break this block right here, both the lever and the piece of redstone will be destroyed because it doesn't have a block to be on. So just to be more clear, you can't put down redstone dust directly on the side of a block. It actually has to go on the top in order for it to be placed down. And as you guys can see, it has its own hitbox right here, so which means that just like the lever and the pressure plate and the button, it takes up its own block space. So for example, if we were to try to place down a block on top of it, it would go up here rather than cover up the redstone. So now let's see what happens when we attach a power source to a line of redstone dust. And now if we were to flick this lever on, you can see that the redstone dust actually lights up. And now that's its way of indicating that it is holding power. And we can actually transfer this power a total of 15 blocks away from the original power source in any direction until it runs out right here. And as you can see, the further and further we get away from the source, it gets dimmer and dimmer until this one right here, this one is completely dark. So if we were to put a redstone lamp right here, it would not light up because there's no power going through this dust because it's too far away. But if we were to put this one right here instead, this piece of dust still has power, so it can light up this lamp. Again, I want to reiterate that it does not matter what direction that the redstone dust goes in. The only thing that matters is that it's in a line of exactly 15. So for example, if we were to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, that means this one right here will no longer have any power. So again, it does not matter what direction that you go in. So now let's take a look at where we can put this piece of redstone in respect to the power source. Now, an important rule of thumb is that anywhere that you can put an output block and have it be switched on, you can replace it with a piece of redstone dust in the exact same spot, and theoretically it should light up. Now, this pretty much means that the redstone dust is its own output block. So if we were to put a lamp right here, you can see that this green block is being powered and it's switching on this output block. So theoretically, if we were to put a piece of redstone dust in the exact same block spot, it also switches on. So you can see that works. Now the other spots that this works is on the side. As you can see, this lights up. So that means that we can put a piece of redstone dust in the exact same spot and it will switch on. Now, the other spot that you can put it on is on the bottom of the block, like so. So we can also put a piece of redstone dust in the same exact spot, and it will work. So like we covered in last episode, this also works directly from the power source rather than the block that it is attached to. So that means that any of these blocks as well can also be replaced with a piece of redstone dust, and it will still work. So let's start with this bottom one right here. As you can see, we flip this lever and this output block will be turned on since it's drawing power directly from this lever. So that means theoretically we can put a piece of redstone dust in the exact same spot and it will draw power from the lever. Now let's take a look at the one on the side. As you can see, a redstone lamp works right here, which means that a piece of redstone dust also works right there. And again, this works from all different directions like so. So now this is where things get a little bit tricky. We can actually put an output block in this spot right here, and it takes power directly from the lever. But this is the only spot where we can't put redstone dust in its place because it needs a solid block in order for it to be placed down. So we can't actually place down any redstone directly onto this lever right here. The last concept that I want to go over is how to power blocks using redstone dust. Now, the first way is just to run a line of redstone directly into a block. So in this case, since this one is powered and it's going directly into this one, this block is now a powered one, which means that any output block that is touching it will be switched on. Now, this is really important because direction does matter in this case. So if we were to redirect this, you can see that it's no longer going straight into the block, which means that this block is no longer being powered and therefore no longer switching on these output blocks. One important thing to note, however, is that this block right here is not powered, and this is because it's not going directly into it. So for example, if we were to put some output blocks right here, none of these will be switched on. The other way to power a block is to simply put a piece of redstone dust on it and to switch it on. So that means that all 4 of these blocks are now being powered because they have a piece of redstone dust that is on top of it. So that means that any output block that are touching these blocks will be switched on. Now, an important distinction is that it does not include the one on top and the one on the side. Now, this one is because it is diagonal from the powered block, and this redstone dust is not running directly into it. And it's not powering this one because this one isn't even touching the powered block at all. So all of the rules that we went over in episode 1 still apply. So if we were to flick this lever right here, this block is now a powered block, which means that any output block that is touching this powered block will be switched on, just like so. And let me flick this on and off to prove my point. Before I end this episode, there's a few little quirks that I want to go over just so everyone's on the same page. Now, as I covered before, the directionality of powering a block with redstone dust does matter. However, when coming from a power source, this does not matter, as you can see right here. The second weird thing is that this piece of redstone by itself has this texture right here, and is pretty much equivalent to what it looks like when it's like this, where it's pointing in all 4 directions. Now let me explain what I mean by that. If we were to put a piece of redstone right here, now it's actually pointing towards all 4 of these redstone lamps, just like this one over here. So if we were to power this piece of redstone dust from underneath, you can see it's pointing towards all 4 and powering all of them. Just to ensure that it's actually the piece of redstone, I'm going to break it, and you can see all of them turn off. And finally, the most important point for last. If we were to power a block using redstone dust, that means that we cannot power redstone dust using this block itself. And let me explain what I mean by that. So in this scenario, if we were to flick this lever right here, this piece of redstone is powering this block, which in turn is powering this output block, which means theoretically that these pieces of redstone should be powered on as well. Well, that's not exactly the case. So if we were to put this lever right here instead, you can see this block is being powered directly, so this is being powered on. So this is something really important that you need to understand, and I will go over workarounds for this in episode 4. And that's going to do it for me today, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I know it was a pretty long episode, and this stuff is pretty complicated, but again, if you just take your time with it and you play around with it yourself, it should all come eventually. And that's it. I'll see you guys in the next episode.